Y'all should see this probably like Wednesday morning. But overall, I hope that you had a spectacular weekend. I hope your week is going smooth. And the reason that I'm here is because I kind of want to put this out here before, the verdict comes out. Because I want to see how well I land this one, right? So there's a lot of discourse around, Megan Thee Stallion and Milagros case. But first of all, hey, how are you doing? I'm so glad to see you. Thank you for popping in. Thank you, subscribers, for popping in. Thank you for the views. Thank you for showing up. All of the above. Thank you for the comments, both good and bad. Well, it's not so much bad comments. I'm starting to see like the academics and Bob's folks kind of show up. Totally fine, but I'm glad to see y'all regardless. But yeah, going back to the case. So there's this whole conversation about, whether or not Megan's lawyers are managing this trial well, right? Where they're making the argument that they're underestimating, what the defense is doing. Like they kind of just letting stuff fly. Megan Cuniff in particular talked about it a lot. So I'll do like a full run through of what I'm thinking because I want to minimize my editing in this space right here and right now, and then save my real dialogue for after the fact, right? Specifically because I feel like I'm a thumbnail it. All right, so bet. So I'm looking at what they're doing, right? And there's a lot of back and forth, a lot of dialogue. They brought Milagro back on the stand, had Megan come up. They saying that Meg violated the gag order, all that other shit, because when she was outside and she was talking to reporters and she was like, yo, you got the right to freedom of speech, but you don't got the right to bully, all that good stuff. Like that's supposed to be violation of the case or whatever. I'm like, yo, it's whatever. Like, I get it. I was like, oh, you know what? I didn't necessarily think that would have been that, but it is relative to what they're actually talking about. So I'm like, fair enough. She got a whole lot. But inside of looking at what's happened so far and the notion that it's so nuanced and it's so 50-50, right? Like there's people that's kind of getting on the fence about it. But I was like, yo, the case itself, like the evidentiary stuff, is pretty clear. But it is important to never underestimate your defendants, right? Like it's important to always keep in mind that just because you have all of the weight to prove a case, that you shouldn't let the case go by the wayside too much, even if you are, again, evidence heavy. So it made me think about like, what is defamation per se? I know everybody's like, oh, what does she mean? She went to college and she don't know what defamation per se is. She don't know what defamation is. And I'm like, yeah, bitch, I'm in grad school right now and I don't know what the specifics of defamation is. So I'm like, you know what? Let's look it up. Let's see what's going on. So I might be able to pop these in pretty quickly and it not be, again, too edit heavy. But what I didn't realize was defamation per se. So we talked about this before, where it's just that you have to prove that somebody said some wild shit about you, and that's the problem, right? The court will assume the damages and all this other stuff. And what Milagro was pushing for, at least what her team was pushing for, was defamation per quad. So a big part of defining her as media defamation per quad is actually taking what she said specifically and correlating it directly to the losses. And so this is a good strategy in the sense that it will be helpful in mitigating what her damages would actually be. So far from what I've seen or like what's come out of the courtroom, right? Just going back and reviewing and everything else, while Megan's team is kind of letting Milagros' team do its thing, I don't really see where her team has necessarily discounted her defamation, if that makes sense, right? They haven't made a claim that's like, oh, at least from what I'm seeing so far, they haven't made a claim that made me say, like, you know what, that's really not defamation. And so I'm like, let me go and check. So here's what I have here. And I went ahead and I checked in Florida in particular, just to make sure that I'm getting in alignment with the specific law for the court that they are actually in. So there are 4 categories of defamation per se that is actually up for review or for the jurors to speculate if it is valid or invalid, right? And so number 1 starts with stating that someone is involved in a crime of moral turpitude. This is again going back to that conversation around perjury, like with everyone suggesting that Meg is such a liar, she perjured herself and all these other things. And this is how come they all kind of backing down off of that statement. Oh, like oh, I don't believe her. I think that she lies. I think that she lies. So you notice that there is this kind of semantics games that's happening around it because now they're understanding the weight of the statement when you say that someone has indeed lied on the stand or they're such a liar and they went in court and told the lie and so on and so forth. You are actually accusing them of a criminal act and you can be held to the fire for a defamatory statement under this clause or under this category of defamation per se. Second, we have stating that this person has a contagious, infectious, or loathsome disease. So going back to what happened to Cardi B, it makes sense. I'm like, oh, sweat. Like the precedent had already been established in the sense that this is that. So let me not say it's already been established, but this is where I can reference and say, like, I get it now. Tasha K coming out and saying that Cardi had a venereal disease actually falls under this kind of category. So the nature of defamation and what it expands over as far as this is concerned, I'm like, okay, that's clarifying in that way. The third one, stating that someone is unchaste or engaged in sexual activity. So unchaste is not quite promiscuity. I wanted to say I'm gonna look that up again because I had to check and see like it's unchastity, right? Like so you kind of just be doing your biggest one and you do it without care. And once upon a time, even things like being a lesbian was considered defamatory because these are things that people were subject to ridicule for, right? Like they could lose a job, lose job offers, and people didn't want to affiliate with them because of their behavior sexually. And this is the hook. This is the fish on the hook moment, right? Because that deep fake, I believe, falls in this category. And here is where I'm interested in how not just the jurors interpret it, but what is the precedent around this entirely, right? So from what I remember, there is a separate law in regards to the deep fake video versus like it being real, like and not knowing that it's fake and so on and so forth. But I'm like, even if she thought it was real, wouldn't it still kind of fall under this window because you're sharing something that you wouldn't have permission to share in the first place? So I'm interested in seeing where that goes and how that's interpreted. And then last but certainly not least is stating that someone is involved in a behavior that is incompatible with the proper conduct of their business, trade, or profession. And you know what? This might sound crazy, but when you talk about someone being incompatible with something or they don't work well with something, um, they're not a fit, right? And I wonder if there was room to create this interpretation about rap culture and snitching and that sort of thing and what that does to her reputation as a person that is a femc, right? Like being in this space and having to go up against this battle of being shot, trying not to snitch, but then after you get antagonized and when you get on the stand and you do your thing, you're still this terrible person that don't deserve your spot. And I'm really curious how that goes. I think that this is an important part of the conversation too, because this is where I think that Megan's lawyers should have did a better job with, like when they're talking about Nicki Minaj and that sort of thing, and why didn't you go after her for the Bigfoot diss track and Drake with the Circle Delay, was or Circle Local? I think that's what it is. I don't know. But all of these people that had shit to say, like in music and whatnot, and I think that the thing that they should have been touching base with is the fact that there is a difference between a diss track at Megan the Stallion and constantly attacking Megan Pete, right? So to try to measure those two things up, I feel like is a misstep by the defense because again, I've mentioned this before that the minimization is actually the problem. The idea that you can make commentary about somebody as a person because they're a public figure after they've had such a personal thing happen to them, I think is wild. Even with the angle that they've taken so far with discussing, like, Milagros' defense came in and said they're going to talk about the case and they're going to look for sympathy. This is not about sympathy, this is about the facts. And then today, well, technically yesterday, they proceed to talk about Milagros' life and growing up as a child and that her language is her language because of these things and how her mother raised her and how her grandmother raised her. So again, just a very interesting space that we're in right now. my perception is that the case has been made, but there's no way for us to know. We still gotta wait and see. So yeah, I want to do more dialogue, more rhetoric around this stuff, but I want to give the length and the body of the discussion afterwards. Yeah, we'll do a little bit more of this afterwards. So that's it for now. I appreciate y'all per usual. Hang tough, and you'll have a good day, and I hope y'all getting ready for Turkey Day and you have a good one. Talk soon.